when a cold gust of wind swept through the marbled halls of the grand press conference center. An uneasy stillness settled over the gathered crowd. It was as if time itself had paused in anticipation of an event that would soon rewrite the narrative of one of America's most talked-about families. The stage was set for a moment of truth, an emotional reckoning that would echo far beyond the polished podium and flashing cameras. The room was adorned with polished wood paneling and golden accents, evoking the grandeur of old money and timeless power. Reporters and cameramen filled every available space, their voices a low murmur of expectation. At the center of it all sat the Trump family, a living testament to fame, controversy, and the weight of legacy. Yet, beneath the surface of public triumph lay private struggles, secrets, and an unbreakable familial bond forged in fire. At a long, tabled banquet set off to the side, Melania Trump appeared serene and poised, her elegant features marred by a hint of sadness. Dressed in a tailored cream suit with soft, flowing lines, she exuded both dignity and vulnerability. Her eyes, often shielded by a practiced smile, now shimmered with an unspoken sorrow that hinted at a deeper story. Across from her, seated quietly in a corner almost hidden from the glaring lights, was her son, Barron Trump. Only a teenager, yet his presence radiated a maturity beyond his years, a silent strength that belied the tempest of emotions roiling inside him. The event had been billed as a routine press conference about a new philanthropic initiative by the Trump family. However, murmurs among the press hinted that there was more at stake today, a confrontation long brewing, a challenge to the carefully cultivated image of a family used to commanding the media spotlight. As the cameras rolled and the flashing lights danced across the room, a familiar figure emerged from the throng of reporters, a liberal journalist known for her sharp tongue and even sharper questions. With a determined stride, she approached the podium, her eyes glinting with the thrill of impending confrontation. "Good evening," she began, her voice both calm and confrontational. "Tonight, we're here not just to discuss charitable acts, but also to address the troubling narrative that has been cast over Mrs. Trump." Her words were measured, but laced with an edge that promised controversy. A ripple of tension passed through the room. Melania's composure wavered for a split second. The faintest flicker of distress betrayed the calm facade she maintained. Barron's gaze, fixed intently on his mother, darkened with a protective intensity. The reporter's question was not simply a query. It was a challenge, a provocation aimed directly at the heart of Melania's character. "Mrs. Trump," the reporter continued, leaning forward so that every word seemed to pierce the silence, "in light of recent events and the overwhelming evidence of bias in mainstream media, how do you justify your public silence on the criticisms levied against you? Are you not concerned about the impact of these relentless attacks on your family's reputation?" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Murmurs arose among the reporters, and a few cameras zoomed in to capture every nuance of Melania's reaction. For a long, heart-stopping moment, there was silence. The dignified woman seemed to shrink behind her carefully constructed veneer of grace, her eyes reflecting the weight of unspoken memories and hidden pain. Melania's lips parted as if to respond, but then she hesitated, her gaze drifting to Barron. In that fleeting glance, an entire conversation passed between them, a silent plea for support, a signal that the time had come for unity in the face of adversity. The air vibrated with tension as the reporter's voice cut through the silence once more. "And what of your son?" she pressed, her tone now edged with incredulity. "Isn't it time he too spoke up against the hypocrisy of those who seek to tear this family apart? Tell us, Mr. Trump Jr., why have you remained so silent on these issues?" The question was directed not just at Barron's father, but at the boy himself. Although Barron had been known for his quiet demeanor, there was an intensity in his eyes that hinted at unspoken defiance. The question seemed to strike a chord deep within him, a mixture of protective fury and the desperate desire to shield his mother from further harm. In the background, Donald Trump exchanged a wary glance with Melania, his own expression hardening as the conversation took an unexpectedly personal turn. The atmosphere was electric, a powder keg of emotions waiting for the spark that would ignite it all. Reporters leaned in, sensing that this was no ordinary press conference but a turning point, a moment when private pain and public spectacle collided. The Liberal reporter, undeterred by the palpable discomfort she was stirring, leaned further into the microphone. "It's time for truth," she declared, her voice rising with conviction, the truth that many in this room might prefer to ignore. "It's time to acknowledge the double standards and the silence that protects those in power. Aren't you tired of the hypocrisy?" The challenge was clear, and the room seemed to pulse with anticipation. Barron's heart pounded in his chest as he listened to the barrage of accusations. Every word felt like a blow aimed at the core of his family's honor, a challenge not only to his mother's dignity, but to the very foundation of their shared identity. His mind raced with memories of quiet moments at home, of lessons learned from his mother about courage, dignity, and the power of a kind heart even in the face of adversity. The sound of the question echoed in his ears as he slowly stood up, his legs trembling ever so slightly under the weight of the moment. His eyes locked with his mother's, conveying a silent promise. He would not let her be belittled, not now, not ever. The room held its breath as Barron stepped forward, each step a defiant act of solidarity. His youthful face, usually so unassuming, was now etched with determination and a hint of anger that resonated with the silent screams of countless injustices he had witnessed. Just as the reporter's words threatened to escalate into a crescendo of controversy, the lights in the hall dimmed momentarily, and the scene cut to black. In that suspended moment, the audience was left with one burning question. What was it that Barron was about to say? And then, in the darkness, a faint sound of a heartbeat echoed, a promise of a revelation that would shatter the calm veneer of the evening. The press conference, once a routine display of power and poise, had transformed into a battleground of ideals and emotions. As the viewers at home leaned forward in anticipation, the stage was set for a confrontation that would soon determine not just the fate of a single interview, but the very spirit of a family under siege. The sudden pause that had gripped the room shattered the veneer of control everyone thought they held. In the wake of that charged silence, the once orderly press conference turned chaotic. The murmur of discontent, the shuffling of reporters, and the frantic adjustments of camera angles blended into a symphony of suspenseful tension. In the heart of it all, the battle lines were drawn, not just between the reporter and the Trump family, but within the family itself, as each member grappled with their inner demons and the overwhelming pressure of the moment. Barron stood at the forefront, his youthful face a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, some filled with anticipation, others with skepticism. He could feel the weight of every unspoken expectation pressing down upon him. In that charged atmosphere, the Liberal reporter's voice, which had been so unyielding just moments ago, began to falter, replaced by a disconcerting silence as the gravity of the situation sank in. "Enough!" Barron's inner voice thundered as he took a hesitant step toward the microphone. The air was thick with emotion, every second stretching into an eternity. He remembered the countless evenings spent at home, quietly absorbing his mother's wisdom, a life lesson about dignity and resilience in the face of relentless adversity. Melania's soft-spoken strength, her unyielding grace under pressure, had always been his guiding star. And now, in this moment of public scrutiny, he knew it was his turn to embody that strength. Behind the scenes, the tension was palpable. Donald Trump's eyes, usually brimming with self-assurance, now betrayed a flicker of worry. He exchanged a long, charged look with Melania, one that spoke volumes about unspoken fears and shared burdens. Ivanka, too, hovered at the periphery, her hands nervously fidgeting as she tried to gauge the unfolding drama. Each member of the family was acutely aware that the stakes were higher than ever before. This was not just an interview, but a defining moment in their personal saga. The Liberal reporter, undeterred by the growing solidarity within the family, launched into another pointed question. "Mr. Trump, Don't you think it's time to address these accusations head-on? How do you justify the policies that many believe contribute to a climate of intolerance?" Her voice was firm, her gaze unwavering, as she sought to corner the family into a narrative that served her own agenda. Her words were like arrows, each one aimed to wound and provoke. Barron's heart pounded in his chest as he absorbed the harshness of the questions. He recalled the painful glances he'd witnessed, moments when his mother's quiet dignity was met with scorn and derision by the media. Those memories, once buried under layers of public decorum, now surged forth like a tidal wave of emotion. Every slight, every insinuation, felt personal. He clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening, as he struggled to contain the storm raging inside him. In a series of rapid, private thoughts, Barron replayed the countless lessons Melania had taught him, lessons of compassion, humility, and the courage to stand up against injustice. "They may try to break us, but we will never be silenced," he thought, the conviction building with every heartbeat. His mind raced with images of the quiet evenings at home, the soft words of reassurance from his mother, as she reminded him that true strength lies in one's ability to rise above the insults and the noise. The room seemed to vibrate with anticipation as Barron's internal monologue reached its peak. His eyes, full of determination, met those of the reporter, as if daring her to continue. For a moment, time stood still. The audience, comprising political pundits, celebrity onlookers, and everyday citizens, held its collective breath, fully aware that they were witnessing a pivotal moment. The reporter, her bravado momentarily faltering, realized that she was no longer in full control of the narrative. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the soft rustling of papers and the distant hum of the air conditioning. Then, in a heartbeat, the reporter's tone shifted. "Is that your final thought, young man?" she challenged, her voice now a mix of curiosity and condescension. "Or do you have something to say for yourself regarding these so-called double standards?" Her challenge, laced with insinuations of immaturity and inexperience, was met with an electric pause. Barron's eyes darted to his mother, seeking silent permission, a reassurance that he was not alone in this fight. In that brief moment, the audience could see the flicker of both vulnerability and fierce resolve in his gaze. He had spent years in the shadow of his family's public image, but now the time had come to step out of that shadow and claim his own identity. The pressure was immense. The room, once filled with a hum of casual conversation, had transformed into an arena of judgment and expectation. Each individual present was a silent witness to the raw confrontation unfolding before them. The reporters scribbled furiously, their pens racing to capture every nuance, every inflection in Barron's voice. The tension was nearly tangible, a living entity that wove through the room, connecting each person in a shared moment of uncertainty and hope. Then, as if propelled by an unseen force, Barron slowly approached the microphone. His steps were measured, his posture resolute. The eyes of the world were on him, and he felt every heartbeat echo in his ears. He took a deep breath, summoning the courage that had been nurtured by years of watching his mother endure and rise above adversity. His voice, when it finally emerged, was steady yet imbued with a quiet power that demanded attention. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a sudden commotion at the back of the room disrupted the fragile calm. A scuffle, a misplaced word, a flash of movement, brought the tension to an almost unbearable peak. The reporter's eyes widened, and a murmur rippled through the crowd. In that instant, Barron paused, his resolve momentarily shaken by the unexpected disturbance. The family exchanged glances, each silently urging him to push forward despite the interruption. As the clamor died down and order was tentatively restored, the spotlight shifted back to the young man at the microphone. His gaze hardened, and his expression transformed from uncertainty to steely determination. "I have something to say," he declared, his voice ringing out across the hall, and it's a truth that cannot be silenced by insults or misguided agendas. The reporter's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of apprehension. The tension in the room spiked to a fevered pitch, as if the very air itself was charged with the promise of change. Every eye was fixed on Barron, waiting for the next words that would either diffuse the situation or ignite an even greater fire. At that precise moment, just as he was about to deliver a statement that would reverberate with the weight of his convictions, the scene faded to black. The lights dimmed, and the sound of his powerful declaration was cut off, leaving the audience suspended in a state of breathless anticipation. In the darkness, a single question echoed through every mind present. What was the message that would break the silence and challenge the forces arrayed against him? In the quiet that followed the abrupt blackout, the world seemed to hold its breath. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only reshape the narrative of a single press conference, but would echo into the very core of the Trump family's legacy. As the lights flickered back on, the hall revealed a transformed scene, one of raw emotion, unyielding resolve, and the unmistakable power of unity in the face of relentless adversity. Barron stood at the microphone, his eyes reflecting a journey of inner conflict and emerging strength. The interruption had only fueled his determination, the moment of pause serving as a catalyst for the torrent of emotions that now surged forth. Every word he had held back, every ounce of frustration and pain, was poised to burst out in a declaration that was as much for himself as it was for his mother, for his family, and for every voice that had ever been silenced by the din of prejudice. "I stand here today," he began, his voice steady and imbued with a gravity that silenced even the most cynical whispers in the room, not as a boy thrust into a spotlight he never asked for, but as a son who has learned from the strength of a remarkable woman. "My mother, Melania, has taught me that true dignity is forged in the crucible of adversity. It is not found in the echoes of empty criticism or the fleeting applause of those who thrive on discord." A murmur of approval rippled through the audience. The reporter, now visibly disarmed by the sincerity and power of his words, shifted uncomfortably. Donald Trump's eyes shone with a mixture of pride and relief, while Melania's expression softened into a look of profound gratitude. In that moment, the divisions that had threatened to tear the family apart seemed to dissolve into a shared understanding, a testament to the enduring bond that no amount of hostile rhetoric could sever. Barron's words continued, each syllable resonating with a deep-seated truth. "For too long, the media and those who seek to dismantle our family's honor have thrived on their own narrative, a narrative built on distortion and divisiveness. They have painted us as caricatures, as symbols of arrogance and intolerance. But I stand before you to say that our strength lies not in conformity to their expectations, but in our ability to rise above them. Our family is built on values of resilience, compassion, and the courage to speak out against injustice, even when it is unpopular." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. In a series of flashbacks that danced behind his eyes, Barron remembered quiet evenings filled with his mother's gentle guidance. He recalled the soft, measured tone of her advice. "Always remember, dear, that your worth is defined by your kindness and your integrity, not by the loud opinions of others." Those lessons, seemingly small in their everyday delivery, had become the bedrock of his resolve. The tension in the hall shifted palpably as Barron's voice grew stronger. "Tonight, I choose to silence the voices that would seek to demean us. I choose to stand up not just for my mother, but for everyone who has ever been told they are less than what they are. My message is simple. Respect and understanding are the cornerstones of a better tomorrow. And if we stand together, we can transform criticism into conversation and discord into dialogue." The impact of his declaration was immediate. A ripple of applause began to build, soft at first, then swelling into a resounding ovation that filled every corner of the hall. The Liberal reporter, whose earlier words had cut so deeply, was now rendered speechless, her challenge diffused by the sheer force of genuine emotion. Reporters lowered their pens and cameras for a moment of reverence, as if bearing witness to history in the making. As the applause reached its peak, Melania stepped forward. With eyes brimming with unshed tears, she reached out and embraced Barron. "You have made me proud beyond words," she whispered, her voice trembling with both relief and joy. "Your courage and your heart have shown the world what it means to stand up for what is right." Her words were soft, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime of experiences, of moments when dignity had been the only shield against a barrage of cruelty. In that heartfelt exchange, the room seemed to transform once more. What had begun as a confrontation had evolved into a celebration of resilience, a powerful reminder that even in the face of relentless hostility, the bonds of family and the strength of conviction could overcome any adversity. The audience, moved by the sincerity of the moment, erupted into a final round of applause, their cheers echoing like a promise of hope. But the night was not over yet. In a surprising twist that few had anticipated, a former critic, once known for his harshest commentaries, stepped forward from the back of the room. His voice, tentative at first, grew steadier as he addressed the crowd. "Perhaps," he said, his eyes meeting Barron's with newfound respect, "there is a lesson here for all of us. Today, we witnessed not just an act of defiance, but a call for unity and understanding. Let us all learn from this, and strive to build bridges where there were once walls." The unexpected endorsement added a bittersweet note to the evening, transforming a moment of personal vindication into a broader message of reconciliation. It was a reminder that change often begins with a single courageous act, an act that can inspire even the most entrenched adversaries to reconsider their stance. As the lights slowly brightened and the press conference drew to a close, the camera lingered on the faces of the Trump family. Their expressions were a complex tapestry of relief, pride, and quiet determination. They had weathered the storm of public scrutiny and emerged stronger, united in the face of adversity. Barron's bold declaration had not only silenced a barrage of insults, but had also sparked a conversation about respect, unity, and the true meaning of family. In the final moments of the evening, as the audience began to disperse and the last echoes of applause faded away, Barron's words continued to resonate. The message was clear. No matter how fierce the criticisms, no matter how deep the wounds inflicted by hateful rhetoric, the strength of conviction and the power of love could transform even the most bitter conflicts into opportunities for growth and understanding. And so, as the stage lights dimmed for the final time, a call to action echoed across the hearts and minds of everyone present and watching from afar. What would you have done in Barron's place? Share your thoughts, your stories, and your hope for a future where respect triumphs over division. Let this be a conversation, a movement towards a world where every voice, no matter how small, is heard and cherished. The night ended with a quiet promise, a promise that the courage of one young man could ignite a spark of change, and that in every challenge lay the seed of a new beginning. The Trump family, with their scars and their triumphs, had shown that true power comes not from the glare of the spotlight or the weight of public opinion, but from the unbreakable bond of love, the courage to stand up for what is right, and the unwavering belief that every act of kindness can reshape the world.